I'm in a good groove right now where I am taking the night off every Monday. So I'll come home from work. I will usually have dinner with my wife and my son. And then my wife takes over for my son for the rest of the evening, putting him down and everything. And I will either choose to go out for a walk if the weather's nice. We have a park right near our house. Or I might go not far away, and just to change up the scenery, I'll get to play a game of Go on my iPad and just set up shop in a local shopping center or something like this. And it's been working out really well. I'll get to play a game for 20 or 30 minutes. That's been really nice because I can reliably play a game at least once or twice a week now, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually quite good. And then I'll get up, I'll stretch my legs, move my body around, and then I get to come back home and I'll go into our office and get to review the game with a laptop because that's much easier to review with. And then I'll put something on my iPad to watch in the background. There's this show called Alone, and it's like a survival show where they drop 10 people into a very wild, extreme environment, and they all have to survive with very few items at their disposal. And it's a perfect pace for having in the background and focusing on reviewing a game, while every once in a while there's something interesting that happens, and you're usually cued into it because the music all of a sudden gets dramatic and intense. It's just my happy place, honestly, like being kind of cozied up, having a game of Go to review that I've played, learning from it, giving my first thoughts on what I might have been doing right or wrong before I then review it with my Go teacher, but then having something playing in the background and then probably having some food too. So it's good stuff. All right. This is All Things Go. Now we're going to round out the last interview of the season with Shawn Ray, who's also known as Clossius online. Take a listen. Clossius, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
First of all, I just wanted to give a quick background per your About Me section on your website and your YouTube. You talk about having a rich history spanning over 15 years in the world of Go, and you've dedicated yourself to both playing and teaching the game. Maybe we can start by going back to the pre-Clossius days and understanding how Go was in your life before your online personality.
It actually wasn't. I made my online account like 3 days after learning Go. I believe it was December 12th, 2006 is when I made my KGS account. So it was a few days before that I actually learned Go. And it was from the anime Hikaru no Go. So watched a lot of anime and I'm like, ooh, I want to learn that game. So I got online and played it.
That's awesome. And where does the name Clossius come from?
It's actually really funny. When I was 11 or 12, we were playing Final Fantasy 11. Like my brother, my mom, all of us were just taking turns. And I wanted to create a username. And I got it in my head that a foreign word was really cool. So I was like, I'm going to use the Spanish word for thank you. But I didn't know how to spell it. So Clossius is a misspelling and mispronunciation of gracias. But since
that's a really cool story.
It's a made-up word, so it doesn't exist anywhere, so I just kept it.
I love it. But that gives you the exact level of uniqueness and a cool story behind it that I think you want in a name.
Yeah, I have been Clossius since like 20 years now, and I'm like, I'm never going to stop being Clossius.
So when did you realize that you wanted to, or that you liked, or that you were good at teaching?
I think it was more like I had so many people helping me, because I had a lot of people giving me game reviews like every week. And I was like, I want to give back, right? And so I had noticed no one had done a dedicated YouTube channel for Go. There's a couple ones, but they had like less than 10 videos. And a lot of other channels that had some Go videos had also other games and stuff. So no one had like a dedicated Go channel. And so I figured I would just make one. The very first video was a long time ago, and it was really bad quality. I think it was literally like this Walmart snap camera or something, or some sort of Walmart $10 camera. And I hung it up by the string of a Wii remote. I hung it over a Go board, and that is how I made my first Go video.
That's a great story. So you started that way. What ultimately helped you decide to go into teaching Go full time?
I had transitioned into charging money at some point just because I wanted to be like a teacher, but I think it wasn't really a conscious decision until
Hmm.
several years ago. So I went to college and I hated college. I really just did not have fun. I liked the learning. I really liked the learning, but the fact that I had to like decide my life, I had to take classes I didn't want to take to do the classes that I did want to take. I just hated the whole experience. And then a few years after that, I had gone to Korea. It was 2014 that I went to Korea, and that was a lot of fun. I had enjoyed that immensely. And then I came home a couple years, I think it was actually 2016. I met my wife. And then in 27, I think it was 2018 maybe, I had a very nice job in Nashville. It was a database entry job. And I had a very comfortable desk job with benefits, 401k, very nice coworkers, very good promotion opportunities. And I was like, this is the dream job that everyone wants. And I'm like, okay, so I just need to stay here for the next like several years, like the next few decades, and we'll be set. I'll be able to take care of family, yada yada. And I had a panic attack because I'm like, I don't want to do this every day. This is not me. This is not who I am. But if I don't do it, then I'm being a bad adult, right? So I'm just going to be a bad adult. I can't do it. If I'm having like panic attacks, then this is just not what I'm built for. Even though it was like everyone's dream job, I'm like, I'm not built for it. And I'm like, okay, even if it's hard, I'm going to do the thing that I want to do. So I just switched and said, I'm going to just teach Go full time instead of part time. And I'm just going to deal with whatever comes. Because I'm like, this is the only thing, this is what I'm built for. I'm not built for a desk job.
And how was that conversation with your wife?
She was very supportive. There is a reason I married her. She said, I would rather you be happy than have like the best job in the world.
And was it something that you decided in a moment because of that, whether it was a panic
I
attack
mean, it
or
was a
was it
span of
something over
several
time?
months.
Yeah,
So it wasn't like instant. And then even then
sure.
it was I had to make sure to do it in a smart way. So like I got a job delivering pizza at Domino's while building up Go, and then she had a nice job, and then she picked up a second job and told me to just focus on Go. So I had to actually drop my job. She worked two jobs while I just built Go and stream Go as much as I could and taught Go as much as I could. She said, just I'll do the work right now. You figure it out, get it working. You just dedicate everything and get it built, get it working. And then kind of flips the other direction several years after that, where she couldn't work and then I was doing everything with Go. So it's kind of gone back and forth on who's carrying the financial burden.
Got it. And it's so interesting because when you think about that whole process, right, of making this huge life change that comes with a lot of consequences, it's also interesting to see how others around you, your community, connect with you on that. So I love how in your YouTube video channel, you have a little bit of an about you. And one of the first lines says, I'm one of those weird people that is addicted to a board game.
Yeah.
And it connects back to how these conversations go when you're seeing friends, family, new acquaintances, and they say, Shawn, what do you do? How has that experience been over time? Is it something that you were comfortable with right
No,
off the bat to say,
no,
this is what
I'm
I do?
still not. I want to make like three times the amount that I make. And then I'll be like, yeah, I do this and I make more than you guys. It's okay. No, it's not super lucrative. So the conversations are always awkward because I feel like I'm not making good decisions in the viewpoint of society. But I know that I'm not built to do anything else. This is who I am. So for better or for worse, I just got to make it work.
I really respect your focus on saying, this is what speaks to me. This is what I need to be doing. And it seems to be working because you are most well known for your Clossius approach, which established a sort of framework for approaching Go. And you describe it as your sort of quote vision to bridge the gap between beginners and amateurs, which I really like. Can you take us through those key concepts that you present in the Clossius approach?
One of the best things that I was ever taught was from a man named Shy Ghost. And that was the three main questions. Where am I weak? Where's my opponent weak? Where's the big one? And as a teacher, I'm like, I need to teach my students how to answer these questions because I was focused on teaching double digit cues and like 20 cues. I'm like, how do I teach them how to answer those questions? And so that's where I came up with all the branches. Here's a base. Here's how you determine if you're weak or not. Do you have a base? Do you not have a base? Do you have weaknesses like cutting points? Are you getting surrounded? If you're surrounded, are you alive? I had to break down like fundamentally every single thing that I took into account whenever I was making that decision. And I had to like really dive deep into like how do I make a decision and break it down so I could explain it to double digit queues to make down level moves on some basic level because they just had no idea where to play. They had no way to answer these questions. And so that's how the Clossius approach was born, was me trying to break it down step by step on how to answer these questions.
And I think we know anybody that has been tasked with teaching something to others knows that that process of having it in your head and saying, this is what I want to get across, and then refining it over and over and over again is not necessarily a quick and easy one. What was that process like? Has it been adjusted over time?
How I explain it, I think, has been adjusted, but overall, the fundamental aspects haven't ever been changed. I think I've expanded like a little bit on how to like approach it, but it's not like you don't make bases or you do anything different. But how I explain it has changed over time, and I get a little bit better at explaining it over and over. I think the most recent thing is how do I expand on frameworks, because a lot of people just don't understand frameworks. And I've been fully thinking about wording it as who controls the four center squares. Because one of the leading things that I see my students do wrong is they keep trying to make territory, and that's not how you win a Go. You actually win by making positive exchange rates. And to make a positive exchange rate, you need to have a position to attack with. And so they keep making extensions, like two space extensions, to make a position instead of a five space extension to make a position. And then I'm trying to explain that those four center squares, those are the positions that you want to control so you can attack with those positions and then make a positive exchange rate. So it's like, biggest framework is still in the Clossius approach. It's still the biggest framework, but how I explain like what the biggest framework is, I guess, is slowly updating over time. And then also figuring out which student understands which student understands a different part, and then figuring out, make sure that teach them the ones that they understand. Because some students understand basis, some students don't understand basis. So basically, I have to figure out where they are in the Clossius approach and then try to help them understand how to answer the questions in a way that they will understand.
Got it. And I notice in your language, when you're explaining this to me, Clossius, you're not using, maybe intentionally, the Japanese terms. Is that something that you're trying to get away from to make it more accessible?
I try to use words that I think make sense. So for example, you can say Joseki, but do you like fundamentally understand what a Joseki is, right? Do you understand like it's an even exchange rate that is commonly played in the corner, but a lot of players would be like, this is Joseki because it's a variation that we play. But like on this position, it's terrible, right? Just because the shape or variation is good doesn't mean it's good everywhere. So it's like fundamentally, do you even understand what those words mean? And then when you're teaching like 20 cues and stuff, they don't know any of the terms. So like, how do you explain to them like what a seki is when they don't even know what an I is, right? So you have to like break it down. That's why like I really try to use more and more English as much as possible, but at the same time, I have to like try to find this nice little balance because I'm the probably one of the very, very few people who don't use Japanese terms if possible. But at the same time, if they go to Go Club or they watch other videos, they're gonna hear these Japanese terms. So I have to like make sure it transitions well. In addition to that, so like mutual life goes in Seki, or Atari is a tricky one. I think that one's pretty easy to grasp if you just explain it. But I like to use lifelines instead of liberties to a 20, like a 32 to someone who's just learning rules.
Sure.
I don't think they care about what a liberty is. 99 out of 100 people are going to play it once and never play it again. So I don't care about making sure that they know the word liberty. I care about making sure they know how to capture a stone. And then once they do that, if they learn more, then we'll expand on it. Like Atari means they only have one lifeline left. Or when they get online, they're like, okay, liberties are what they call lifelines or something like that. That way they understand what we're talking about whenever we say the words.
And what I like about this approach is that there's a lot of practicality to it. And you do say in your approach that the hope is that you're able to apply this to players of all levels and be useful in, I think you said, most of the board situations. You talked to me a little bit about where you've seen things go poorly, at least with students around focusing too much on territory. Where have you seen this approach used by your students or others? And then you said, wow, like that was executed beautifully.
I think to me, I really like it when the student plays a clean game. Every single move has a good meaning. It doesn't need to be perfect, right? Because if they were perfect, they would have set
Sure.
it up. But every single move has a meaning. Every single move is making value. Every single move is doing its job. And they're able to play a very clean game, even if it's suboptimal. I think that's the type of game that I love seeing my students play is they just know fundamentally what they're trying to accomplish. They're playing defense when they need to play defense. They're playing offense when they need to play offense. They know how to make big moves, and then they can get to the end game in a relatively safe, reliable manner. It's consistent, decent play. They don't need to play good play; they just need to play consistent, decent play. So I want to see a nice, clean game like that, where they're not wasting moves or fighting over 1 point when there's a 20-point move on the board, or not missing Ataris. I see two Qs missing Ataris. It's kind of silly, but that's what I try to do is just get them to understand, like, here's how you play the game. Here's how to play a nice, clean, consistent game. And then from there, you just fine tune it like sharpening sword. You just make it sharper and sharper and sharper. But if you're trying
That's
to like fight a samurai with a tennis racket, it doesn't make sense.
that's a very striking analogy. I like that. So you are talking about situations where there's a real consistency in play from students. And I think in some ways that also sounds like they're playing sound fundamentals via the Clossius approach. So you see that game and you say, excellent, they're really executing on the things that we discussed. Yet there are still mistakes, very obvious mistakes that you see even for more advanced players, mainly because the game is very difficult, right? There's a lot of things happening at the same time. What are some best practices when you think about good game review? Because you do a lot of this for others in your tutoring sessions. What are some good habits that people can build around game review?
Um, I very strongly believe that people need to learn how to review a game and understand the game isn't good or bad quality from one mistake. One mistake doesn't make or break the game. You can be like playing a very nice, clean game, and then you made a judgment call that this group was alive, and then the group dies, and you're like, that game is trash. I should have solved the life and death. No, like you messed up one fundamental. Then go back, review, learn, and go play another game. And just try to do better next time. The fundamental idea of like, I'm trying to do 10 things all at the same time, consistently. And if I mess up one thing, it doesn't mean the game's bad. I try to tell my students, even if it's a loss, it can be still a really good game. Your opponent's also a human being trying to play a really good game. You're supposed to lose more than half the time. That doesn't mean you're playing bad half the time. So whenever you're reviewing the game, you really want to just make sure that you're understanding what you're trying to do. So, for example, if I'm trying to get to the end of the game without a dead group, okay, did you ignore weakers? Did you ignore bases? And you want to just look at that and you say, did I do it? Yes or no? And then you want to try to do it again and then again and then again. So when you review a game, you don't really need to spend that much time reviewing it, maybe 5 minutes. And you just want to say, did I do what I was trying to do, whatever you're working on? And did I mess any other fundamental up that I know when I was trying to do this thing? Did I forget defense while I'm working on offense? Did I attack did I make a framework before attacking? Make sure you got the right order. And you're just looking for things you already know. This is what I mean by sharpening. It's not that you're learning anything new. You're just making sure that you're applying the stuff that you already know. So whenever you review the game, you don't really try to learn new stuff. New stuff comes from like books, videos, teachers, and all that stuff. But when you're reviewing the game, you just need to make sure that you're not messing up the stuff you already know. And spoiler alert, you are. And that's the idea is you want to find like one or two things that you forgot about and then make a mental note. And like maybe you missed the net. Okay, we'll go do 100 net problems and then play another game. And that's the idea is you should constantly make your game more sharp and accepting that you're not perfect. And it's okay. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be slowly improving a lot. And I think just don't stress about the game review so much. It's cool. It's good to learn one or two things from every single game. That's really useful. But I think everyone cares so much about making sure that the game review, they look at themselves, like you look in the mirror and you find every flaw with yourself. It doesn't mean you're like ugly or anything. You're just slowly working on yourself a little bit at a time. And just have fun with it and have fun learning new stuff. Like you are always bad at the game. It doesn't really matter like how much you study or whatever. You're always bad at the game if you compare to like AI or whatever. So I think a lot of players will stress themselves out reviewing their games. They'll go in depth and find every single move that was bad and think that I'm just a bad player. And really, you're not. I guarantee you, like, you're much stronger than you think you are. Like, 9Q is better than half the community. And I think a lot of people just don't understand that. And they put way too much pressure on themselves.
What do you think it is about Go that does that? Because you're not the first person I've heard that from in terms of looking at things too much from a negative light and those sorts of things.
I think Go is a very accurate mirror of yourself. And it's very hard for human beings to accept the flaws of themselves because we always want to be like best. We always want to be the doing
Sure.
great and make correct decisions because you don't go out intending to make wrong decisions. But you have
Right.
to look in the mirror, like to Go, you can look, it's a mirror of your mind. And if you don't like what you see, then it can be very upsetting. But it's this process of accepting and being okay with your imperfections and just enjoying the process of bettering yourself over time infinitely because life and Go are very similar. You'll never ever master it. Like you'll always be able to improve it. And so I think Go being a mirror to the mind can be very difficult for a lot of people to accept because you have to accept the ugly parts of yourself as well as the good parts of yourself.
With that being said, and after many years that you've been teaching, what do you see as the most common bad habits from students when it comes to their approach to improving? So you've talked about building territory too quickly or getting too negative. Are there any other bad habits that you want to mention?
Oh, there are several. Usually I'll talk to a student and I'll be able to catch a couple bad habits like really fast. There's a lot of mental bad habits, one of which is struggling to accept loss and putting way too much pressure on yourself and your rank. Another one is this is the one that I really try to get people to understand that they just don't. That you don't need to play 20-minute games every single game. You don't need to play 40-minute games every single game. Everyone's trying to play like the best possible game every single time. It's like that's you can't play like tournament level play every single time you play. It's just unpractical. Like you have to play
Sure.
average at some point. But everyone wants to play the perfect game and they want to put the max quality. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Just play 5-minute games. Just play lots and lots of games. It's like trying to play a video game, and you can only play the video game if you're willing to spend a painstaking amount of time to make sure that you do this stage optimally, perfectly, and no mistakes. And it's like, no, just go in there, die, mess it up, and then go in again, die. It's like Go is like Dark Souls on steroids. You're not going to be able to master the fight the first time through. You're going to have to go in there and die a few times. So just go die. Just go see what the tech patterns are, whatever, right? Just go play. But everyone wants to like study all these guys. Like if it's an example of Dark Souls, like you see a boss, they don't want to go in there and die. They want to like look up the guide. They want to see tutorials. They want to see the button combinations. They want to see the timings. All of this prep work before they go in. And then they don't even go in. They go in and die, and then they're mad because they did all that prep work and they still died. I'm like, well, yeah, you still have to gain the experience. You still have to go in there and die. It doesn't matter how much prep you do. So just go in there and die a few times and then review. And then like look up a video like, hey, I messed up this attack pattern. What the heck? And then you go look up a video and then you go try again. And that's fine. But if you just care too much about doing it perfectly, you never play the game. And I think you just need to enjoy it. Go as a game. It's just like a video game. Stop stressing so much. Just play the game. Have fun.
It feels like sometimes we forget that, right? Even for students where this isn't their full-time thing, right? If you're professional or you're a teacher, okay, that's one thing. Playing devil's advocate, I can hear my teacher saying the exact words you're saying right now about don't stress about it too much. Just play. It's okay if it's not a 20-minute main time game. And a lot of times what I come back as saying is I say, well, sure, but I also want to have a certain minimum level of ability to concentrate and focus to play this game. So if it's late at night and I've just worked a full day, am I going to be just missing Ataris all over the place or things like that? What would you say for that sort of situation?
Well, you can either miss Ataris or you can just not play the game. If you're so paranoid about playing bad, then you're never going to play, and you're not playing. It's like, but you have to play when you can play, right? So yeah, sure, you love a more
Right.
optimal environment, but at least it's better than not playing the game at all. And if you don't want to play it at all, like, then I don't know, play chess. I don't know. So it's better to play and not care. I've heard some chess players actually came over to Go because they were caring too much about chess, and Go they just don't have nearly as much pressure, so they can just play and have fun. And then it can go
Interesting.
both directions. People just get
Right.
too invested. I think past 14Q probably people start caring way too much. And the reason kids can get to down level so fast is kids don't care. Kids just want to like
Interesting.
win that game that day. And then the next day, they want to win
Right.
that game that day. They don't care about getting to dawn at a certain time limit or whatever. They just play the game. It's really difficult, of course, for adults to not care, but kind of you have to have that kiddish optimism and
Hmm.
really have that fire of I want to play another game. Because if you're not playing the game, then you're caring too much. But at the same time, if you don't care at all, play
And do you
bad
think that
quality.
ties back to winning as well?
Yeah, every kid wants to win, but as soon as they lose and they play another game, all of a sudden they want to win that game. They don't care about the last one at that point. Now they want to win this one, right? Or
Right.
if you have a kid like that has a strong rivalry and they lose, like again, play me again, play me again. I want to try to win again. You have to have that blind optimism, passion. Yeah, like it's oh, I lost the game. I want to try it again. I want to keep trying over and over and over until I win. That's kind of actually what I did when I first started was I had a Go Club
Hmm.
member. One was an 8Q, one was a 1Q. And then I took a 9 stone handicap. And I wasn't worried about getting one done in like a year or whatever. I was worried about beating them that weekend. I wanted to go and I wanted to win
Right.
9 stones. And then when I finally like I would go and I would lose and I go back for the entire week, play lots of games, and then go back like I want to win this week, and then I'd win, and then I go down to 8 stones, and then the next week I'm like, okay, I want to win at 8 stones. Oh, I lost. Next week, okay, I want to win it. Oh, I lost. Next week, all right, I won. Let's go down to 7 stones. And that's all it was just me going down like one level at a time. And now I can't even get people to play handicap games. They're like, no, it's not the real game. I want to play the opening that I'm comfortable with. I think people just care too much about playing the game perfectly. They care about it being the perfect
Hmm.
game or the perfect optimal game. Like handicaps not go, 13 by 13's not go. Playing Tengen is maybe not go, depending on who you are. Everyone just wants to play this optimal, perfect game or something instead of just having fun with it.
Do you think there's any sense that the current environment we're in around social media, clickbait, doing things quickly, addiction to, I don't know, fast playing games, whatever it is, do you think any of that plays into people's inability or challenge to have the grit to kind of hang in and lose a game in Go? You have to lose a lot and say, oh, losing's okay. I just want to learn. I want to improve to get to the point where you're winning. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, are we applying that to only Go players or are we applying it to everyone? Because I think a lot of people can't play Go probably because of that, but you wouldn't call them Go players.
Hmm.
But at the same time, they could be
Hmm.
potential Go players that are not playing because Go is too long, it's too time consuming. But at the same time, I think I don't know if social media would have any impact on people playing too fast. I think people honestly need to play faster. A lot of people, anyway. There's definitely some blitzers that are bad, but I think a lot of people care too much and are playing way too slow, and then they just don't play. All right. But also, like, they're the type that are probably playing Go because they want the more patient stuff or because they want a slower pace rather than social media, which is fast paced, fast paced, fast paced. So I think probably what you're saying applies more to the people who won't play Go because of that reason rather than the current Go players.
Right. So to newcomers, if they start seeing the game, they see the rules. You have that excellent video about how to learn Go in 5 minutes or the rules of Go in 5 minutes, which is
Oh,
excellent. I
I've gotten
highly
that down to
recommend it.
like 1 minute.
Oh, have you really? That's
Yeah,
great.
like no, I think I got it down to like 30 seconds. I legit have been with my app. I try to just I open my app and then I just hand it to someone and say nothing to see if they can start playing the game without any input. And I'm like,
That's so great.
that's the level I need to get it to. And they're like,
Right.
what do I
Right.
do? I'm like, tap the screen. They tap it. Okay, and then I say, okay, just whoever gets more pieces wins, and if you get surrounded, you die. And then they just play on a 5x5. And then in like a minute, they're done. They're like, oh, I lost. And I'm like, here's the replay button. Okay, then they try it again, and all of a sudden they play 2 or 3 games in 5 minutes, and I didn't have to do anything but like say two things. So for me, I put a lot of effort in the last year or two, really targeting like 30 Qs, like the people who don't play Go.
Mm.
Because in my mind, I'm like, we have a ton of stuff for the dedicated Go players, but there's a very, very large entry barrier. And I think I'm making a lot of tools and ideas and concepts to target the 99 people who don't play Go. So if you teach Go to 100 people, like 99 of them won't play. Okay, well
Mm.
I want a lot of those 99 people to play, but what I'm teaching is not very good for the 1% who will play but want to play like hardcore and want to play like super serious. I'm trying to target I've been doing a lot of methods, developing a lot of methods to target the people who will play Go like a game and are satisfied never getting out of the 20 queues. And I'm trying to make a lot of stuff to target them to create more Go players, not just Dom players.
And maybe this is a good spot to tie in Sumego Dragon, which you created. Tell us a little bit about how the idea came about, what problem you were looking to solve with the creation of it as it relates to current online sources for Go problems.
So when I was teaching my students and telling them to go do Go problems, the best site that I found was actually 101weiqi.com. And then we had a spreadsheet that would had the translations of all the different categories, like snapback, net, blah blah. And I'm like, okay, no one else has this. Like, no one is separating the Go problems into categories. Everyone's like, here's Go problem sets by this person. Here's Go problem sets by that person. Here's life and death for days. But no one just says, here's nets, right? Here's snapbacks. And 101 Weiqi had that. And they had the spreadsheet of translations, and it was very easy to share and give to students. But then it got put behind a paywall, which is fine. Like I'm a big supporter of
Mm-hmm.
like businesses charging money for the stuff. That makes it better.
Sure.
But it's in Chinese, right? So it's really difficult to walk people through how to sign up on a Chinese website. There are English
I think exact
plugins.
experience. Same experience. My teacher who speaks Chinese tried to get me in. It still didn't work despite his best efforts.
Yeah, it's annoying. If you, I think with English, there's English plugins for Firefox and Chrome, which makes it a lot more
Mm-hmm.
usable. And I think putting in enough effort, a lot of like you can do it. It's still a really good site. Um, but I want it to be like instantly accessible, right? And I'm like, we need something like we need 101 Weiqi in every other language. Like we need it in English, we need it in Spanish, we need it all the other languages. So I decided to make my own Go problem website. I'm like, this is a gap in the community, and I have the knowledge and tools from the experiences I've gained over the years with coding and teaching and all that stuff. I have the knowledge and tools to structure this in a way that I think would be very helpful. And then I also started taking into account like how do I make this also approachable for the double digit queues, the 20 queues and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure.
I got my wife involved. Like, hey, I'm the serious guy. I can't do this from a 30 queue perspective. I need outside perspective. How do I make this visually welcoming to beginners? And then she introduced the cute concept, cute animal concept, and then I knew I had access to a bunch of dragons, and I thought
Huh.
Sumego Dragon sounded cool. So we kind of went back and forth and developed the idea of collecting dragons, and had Sumego Dragon, and then getting cute dragons, cute backgrounds, custom stones, custom board skins, stone skins, and really played into that cute, fun customization. And boy, did I
Sure.
receive a lot of negative feedback, a lot of negativity about the
Huh.
stones not being black and white. People
Interesting.
did not like the smiley faces on the ghost stones or the mustaches on the ghost stones. They like it's supposed to be black and white and a brown board. Stop changing it. Like, but I want a pink flower board with cherry blossoms and pink stones. Like you gotta think about the 20 Q perspective, the 30 Q perspective. Like, and I've
Hmm.
heard a lot.
Hmm.
One of my favorite things is hearing how many like 8-year-old girls are playing because they like the cute dragons and they're like the pink ghost stones, and how many of
Oh
them are now
wow.
playing it when they wouldn't even look twice at it. Their parents played it, like the dads or whatever, telling me like they played it, they could never get them into it. But now, thanks to Mega Dragon, they're playing like 5x5 and even playing them on a 9x9. And they're not very good, but they're playing the game like almost like quite often now because they're enjoying the dragons and the cute stuff versus they wouldn't even look at Go before that. So like I get a lot of negativity for the custom stones and weird looks and stuff. But then I have like if I'm getting kids into it, then you can go over there and play with your black and white stones. I'm getting a lot of new Go players into it.
Which is really important. So it's this whole balance that you're trying to strike to get people in the door and then stick around long enough
Right.
to realize how great of a game it is.
So what's the Mega Dragon actually? In order to try to, I've been trying to really deal with that balance and actually came up with the idea in
Mhm.
the last couple of weeks to actually make a different mode for beginners, which I'm calling adventure mode, which is a lot more appy, cartoony, and fun versus the main site, which is a lot more categories, a lot more buttons, a lot more information. Um, but it's for the dedicated players that want to learn every single category instead of like beginners or kids that just want to learn how to capture a stone. So I'm kind of actually
Yeah.
separating the experience just slightly to get a different feel, and in order to give both parties something interesting, because I still think the dedicated Go players need categorized Go problems like nets, ladders, stuff. But I also want the beginners to be able to have fun as well.
Great. So we've talked a lot about your teaching side of things and this website, Sumago Dragon, and all these really great resources and things that you bring to the community, which are very evident if anybody's been involved in the last few years and beyond. What about Clossius as a Go player? Tell us a little bit about anything you're doing from a personal Go playing perspective in terms of tournaments or other events.
He's on hiatus. I I never play Go anymore. And not because I don't want to either. Like I still go to Go tournaments like all the time. But I'm like, man, I wish I could study this game. Right? But no, I spend like 10 hours a day like coding and teaching and like setting up like all these different things. Give students recommendations. I'm getting Go books. Just got Go books ported into the country from Korea. I'm getting some Mega Dragon built. I have the NAOL teaching. I have the live streams. I have lessons and students and yeah, no, I don't get to play. Uh, like I suppose I could on some level, but honestly, when after at the end of the day, and if I'm laying in bed, I think I just pull up a chessboard. I can play chess in 5 minutes, and I don't care. I literally just don't care. But if I play Go, I have to play at a Dawn level, right? I'm playing Dawn players if I play Go, and it's
Hmm.
on a 19 by 19, so it's going to take at least 30 minutes, and then I can't just slack off because I tried that and I lost instantly because Dawn players are kind of good at the game. You have to like read at least 5 to 10 moves every single move, so you can't just slack off and play on your phone. It's really hard to play a Dawn player on the phone. So yeah, I've played like 5 minutes of chess or something. I tried playing some 9x9, but I'm like, this is fun. But honestly, if I'm going to play Go, I'd rather play 19x19 using the last 15, 17 years of experience to play this. Um, but yeah, it's a lot more work. Uh, I actually think becoming a Don makes the game less fun. It makes it work.
Well, I could understand. I mean, purely from the perspective of learning curve, I could see that if you reach these levels of Dawn, you already know so much, and there's certainly more to know. But as you said, it's almost approaching infinity. So the ability to improve by a very small amount must take a disproportionate amount of effort.
Oh yeah, I'm not really worried about improving. I would just like to play. The problem is every single game takes a crap ton of effort because like it's hard to read 10 moves when you're being lazy, right? So
I feel like your Clossius teacher to you would be like, well, Clossius, make sure you're playing for fun. But it sounds like at the top level, you have to look into everything so much, or you have the
Well,
ability to look
if
at everything so
I
much,
if I was
right?
to play the game, I'd have to stop teaching, I think. Because if I'm
Mm-hmm.
like I said, you need to have fun, right? The thing that I
Right.
enjoy lately is helping people improve. And like I'm like really
Mm-hmm.
passionate about helping the community. But if I'm like, okay, let's just drop everything and focus on me, then yeah, like no joke, I could probably get to 8, 7, 8 dot pretty quickly because I just know what to do. I know what it takes to get
Mm-hmm.
there. And I could probably get to like 7 dan in like a year, two at the very most, just by like studying for 10 hours a day. If I put it into myself what I'm
Right.
putting into the community, like it would be probably easy, it's just a matter of time. And honestly, I'd probably
Well,
have
yeah.
a fun playing the game too. But then who's gonna help the community, or how am I gonna make a living? All these other important
Right.
questions.
And you're trying to balance that, right? You're trying to balance growth of the community with a sense of personal fulfillment that you're making a difference, right? And that you're enjoying that process of seeing other people learn and connect to it. That's a good thing. It actually brings us back to, which is sort of the state of Go in the West and ideas or thoughts around what direction it's moving in. Do you feel like there's opportunity for it to continue to grow through folks like yourself in the community? Are there other things that need to be done? What thoughts do you have there?
Um, I believe we can grow the community like 10 times or more. But there's a few people that I think are having the right mindset, but there's a ton of hardcore players that are really unwilling to change to invite the more players because they want the hardcore experience. They want the hardcore players, but that is incredibly
Hmm.
unwelcoming to the 99 other people out of the 100 that might play Go, but they don't care about the hardcore
Mhm.
experience. I mean, how many people do you think attend a chess event to watch? Interstate Drive. Uh, how many people do you think attend a chess event to just watch as for fun, and they don't really care about competing? They just enjoy the environment, or they enjoy the meeting people and playing for fun. They don't really enjoy the hardcore experience. And even the chess community, I do a lot of
Hmm.
research in the chess community. They are a lot more into the rapid and blitz play, the fast games.
All right.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun to watch. It's a lot more interesting. People don't have to wait an hour for people to make moves or for the game to finish. They can actually sit and watch a game on their lunch break and be like, "Oh, that was cool," or something. But
Hmm. Hmm.
because no one has time to sit and watch a 6 hour game. Like we try to watch a Japanese pro or Korean pro live stream or whatever, and you're like, I don't have time to. It's like 2 a.m. I don't want to stay up until like 8 a.m. watching this game. So you go to sleep and you check back in the morning and they're still playing, and you're like, holy crap. No, it's like, yeah, there's a type of player that caters to, and that's cool. But we also need to cater to the other people too. It's not only for hardcore players. And I think if we make Go more welcoming to the non-hardcore players in addition to the hardcore players. We still have hardcore tournaments, but we also need to have a beginner division, like a 13 by 13 division. And if we are able to hit both of those audiences, I really think the community will easily grow like 10 times the size because I think there's a lot of Go players that don't play Go because they just aren't interested in the hardcore experience.
And at this time, do you think a lot of that ability to grow or possibility to grow comes more from individual contributors like yourself, or is it something that can be done at an institutional level to help put resources behind it?
Um, I think right now it's just going to be individuals like myself, but institutions could make a much larger difference if two things happened, and one is if they had more money. This is where,
Hmm.
like the AGA, for example, they charge a $30 membership for the entire year. And I'm like, no, you need like freaking $15 a month or $30 a month. You ain't gonna make squat if you have $30 a year per member. And if you don't have any money coming in, you can't spend the money to do stuff, right? And they're like, oh, we can't afford this thing. I'm like, well, yeah, that's because you don't charge enough money. You need money to make things happen. And then the second thing is you need people who know what they're doing. The board of directors is made up of a bunch of old volunteers who aren't even with the times. Like you need to hire marketing experts. You need to hire like computer scientists. You need to get people who know what they're doing and use them to build the game. Like you don't even need Go players to do it. You need someone who's like good at business management. You need someone who's good at marketing, and you need to get them into it. Like, yeah, they can do research, they can understand Go. They don't need to be like a single digit cube Go player in order to be on the board of directors. You really, honestly, probably don't need Go players on the board of directors. They just need to know what Go is and like it, um, and know how to do their job, rather than trying to be good at Go and then trying to figure out this whole marketing thing from scratch, in their free time, because they also have their own day jobs. It's a volunteer organization. They aren't spending
Sure.
40 hours a week building Go. And I think the people who are like me are spending 40 hours a week because it's their job, and
Right.
literally throw themselves into the Go community and just exist there and spend all of the time there. And they're the ones that I think are making a difference right now. And I think for organizations, they just need they need money and they need to hire people who know what they're doing. And I think that's the big thing. Um, and they also need like better structure. Organizations built by volunteers, not built by people who know how organizations work.
Hmm. I appreciate that. Maybe a couple last few questions, and I appreciate your time, Clossius, is around Go and other parts of your life. So how did your wife get involved with Go?
Oh, because I play it. She would have never heard of it otherwise.
So you taught her, she got into it. Was it something that she was immediately interested in, or because it was something that you were doing regularly?
Yeah, she liked it. She wanted to know what it was, but it's not like she cared
Mhm.
about improving. She's been double digit Q her entire like relationship. She's almost single digit Q now. She's getting there soon. She's started to put on a little bit of effort, but no, she doesn't care about playing like on a competitive level. She's one of the casuals. That's why I go to her for advice all the time. I'm like, what makes you play the game? What would get you interested in playing more? Like, why do you not play? Why do you not do Go problems? They're boring. I agree. Why are they boring? What can we do to make that difference? So it's like if I can't get my wife to play, how am I going to get like all these other people to play? So I go to her for advice like all the time on for the casual players. The hardcore players, I can get them to play all day long, and I can even tell them what to do to improve, and hopefully they'll do it. But I can't get casuals to play at all. So that's where I've been focusing my efforts is the casual players. I think she only plays because I play. She'll probably play now on an every so often because she's just put enough effort in. But yeah, I don't think she would have ever played if it wasn't for me.
So is it something when you think about your marriage, your relationship, and the fact that it's a full-time job for you, how do you two make sure that you balance those things? So when you two have you time to go, whatever it is, on a date or go out for a walk, are you making sure that you're not talking about Go at all, or
I
are you having
mean,
strict
no,
rules there?
it's not like there's a rule or anything like that. It's
Sure.
just not something we do. Like
Mm,
she likes playing Dungeons and Dragons, so we'll talk about Dungeons and Dragons, or I'll talk to her about Sebago Dragon. We'll just talk about things in
cool.
general conversation, but it's not like I'm talking to her about the latest pro game I previewed or whatever. And we also have like other interests, like we talk about TV shows or like how the day's going, and like it's a relationship, so it's not like we avoid it or anything. We don't play each other
Mhm.
like ever for very important reasons, but other than that, like there's not really any rules or anything.
Great. Before we go, is there anything that you would like to speak on that you feel like we didn't speak on during our time together?
I think if I was to say anything to people, just have fun with Go. Stop caring so much. Just play the game and have fun.
Hmm.
Enjoy it. It's a game.
That's great advice. I will take that. And I think we all need reminders. So as one of the big teachers out there, I appreciate everything you do. So again, thank you for the time.
Thanks for having me.
Next up, Gaza White gives us a few thoughts on the gender gap in professional Go and how the system has set up to try to narrow that gap. Take a listen.
At least in Japan and Korea, I believe it's also the case in China and Taiwan, that there are different professional qualifying streams, so different ways to become a professional. In Korea, I'm aware of 3.
Okay.
There's the general professional qualification system where anyone can enter the qualification tournament and they pick the best. There's a professional qualification system restricted to females. And there's one that's restricted to like prodigies, like preteens, really, really young kids. And even the current top female players in Korea, they qualified as a professional through the women's exclusive qualification. But then when they become a professional, they'll compete in women's tournaments and also the open tournament. The top Korean women's player, Choi Jong, she qualified through the women's qualification. I think the current approach is to make the representation as close to 50-50 as possible between men and women. And so this female qualification system, female exclusive qualification system, encourages women to try and qualify. And then once they turn pro, they have the opportunity to play against women and men and the opportunity to grow and become the best player that they can be, among the general population. Hopefully, it gets to a point where the representation becomes 50-50 and, encourage more women to play. It's hard to know exactly how well it's working, though.
It is now time to do a wrap-up of the season and discuss some of the key takeaways, primarily from the interviews where I was asking similar questions over and over around how to spread the popularity of Go, particularly when the game is difficult. How do you explain it to newcomers? What are the ways that you lay the rules out? And how do you think about ways to have the game become more popular? And so there's a couple things that stood out from me. It was a great learning process for me just to hear these different opinions from people that have really been in this community. And this is either their full-time job or it's something that they've just, again, been involved with for a very long time. And so the first one is that Go is really hard, which is not a surprise to anybody. It's really difficult as a game to play. And some of the folks with whom I spoke thought that because it's so difficult, it's going to be hard to make the game more popular in the West, in America. Others thought that could be something that could be sort of a hook to get people into the game because there are other things that are played, other games that are played in America that are innately very challenging, and yet they have a significant followership. The question that was asked, which I actually didn't think to even ask, is should Go be made more popular in the West? Is that something that is wanted? And sometimes I think we say we want it, but we don't necessarily think about what the implications are. Personally, I do feel like I would like the game to be a little bit more popular because there's a certain point at which you're able to get access to more books, more things translated into English from where it's very popular in the East, and having more connection with others so that it's not just so completely unknown in sort of the pop culture part of America. That would be really nice. That might be naive of me to say, but that's how I personally would like it. At the same token, if it were incredibly popular and everybody was playing it, I don't know if it would be something that I would necessarily be into. Sometimes I find myself connect to things that because they're not super popular. However, all the different nuances and subtleties and complexities of the game do make it feel like I would actually want to stick with the game anyways. The other big takeaway was that we need to be okay with losing and just remind ourselves that constantly. And when you lose those games, you really need to focus on them. Try to trick yourself into thinking that it's just as good as winning and really use those experiences. Get somebody that is knowledgeable to help you understand what was happening and get different opinions because it's a very complicated, nuanced game. We're all going to have different strengths and see different things. There were some different examples that were provided of how to make Go more popular and how it's been successful in other places. For example, Devin Fraze was talking about how in Russia, showing business people, successful business people, that Go could really help them with their strategizing and being even more successful, then would feed down to other parts of the population and increase the popularity of Go to some degree. I'm not sure to what extent. And typically we go to looking at getting the youth more involved with the game, but that might not necessarily be the tactic that we need to take. I'm convinced personally that starting with Sumego, using little puzzles first to draw people in, might be a way to increase interest, initial interest, because it's smaller. You can actually try to wrap your brain around it as somebody that knows nothing about the game. And I was hearing over and over again from other teachers during these interviews that one way they got really hooked into the game, like I did, is that I would make a move with a stone and then the pieces would disappear because I'd be playing on a computer online. And then I would say, like, why did that happen? I have no clue why that happened. And then I'd want to learn more about it. It's a group of people that play Go that are endlessly interested in the puzzle and figuring things out. And Go does become this amazingly instructive thing that teaches you about relationships, right? Relationships between objects, perceived strength, weakness, influence at such a fundamental level that it then shows you how these other things work in life. It almost feels to me like a unified theory of things in the world, of relationships in the world. I think about something else that I was really into when I was growing up, which was cycling. So competitive road cycling. So think Lance Armstrong winning the Tour de France. And cycling was not a particularly popular sport going into the 2000s. And when Lance Armstrong started winning the Tour de France, the initial way that cycling started to become popular again was that he had accomplished this huge feat, right? Winning this huge race that was really mostly popular in Europe. And that was getting through to journalism and the news in America to say, wow, this American, won and then had cancer and then came back. And a lot of you may or may not know that how that story ended. It was proven out that he was actually using a significant amount of performance-enhancing substances to win along with his other teammates. And my point is that you needed that initial spark to really get people's interest. And you could see it. That was how I got more into bicycle riding, road racing. You could see others doing it. And that was over years. I mean, it was over a lot of the 2000s that happened. And then even after that, all that happened, even before it was discovered that he had cheated, the sport wasn't, all of a sudden catapulted to one of the most popular sports, right? That's just not how it works. And it takes so much time, even with something like that. And so we've had these opportunities for sparks with Go, particularly AlphaGo, which is how I connected to the game. And this concept that I was hearing about, a huge wave of people would come in and be interested and then they would disappear. And how do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them involved? Over and over, hearing that there's just a huge gap in support, in knowledge, in helping people go from the first exposure to the game and then getting to maybe 10Q or something like that. Once you get through those double-digit Q periods or ranks, you're pretty much hooked. And I can personally say I feel that way. Once I got through some of those initial levels, it really took off for me. And even if I can't play it all the time, I know I will always be in my life to some degree. Another point that was made was around how much the time and the number of games you play when you're learning. And what I heard was that up to a certain level of play, particularly from Kim Owlane, if you play quicker, faster games and you play a lot of them, it can really help you improve up to a certain level around your knowledge of Joseki, around just seeing a lot of different variations of things. It will also help you kind of break out of overthinking and getting hung up or attached or over-invested on moves. I know I certainly do that. I will play longer games, one, because I think I need the time to think. It's just there's so much going on the board. And then I will kind of over-invest in a move. So I personally took that as something that I could try doing with my teacher. And I know my teachers suggested it as well. Something I wasn't expecting, particularly when I spoke to Telegraph Go, was how some players in the community have improved because of the sort of self-enforced positive social pressure they got from streaming their games or their Sumego puzzles, because it would spark them to give their best and not give up. And that could be a really huge help for, maybe not for newcomers, but if somebody really wants to start going to the next level. When Telegraph Go was talking about his beginnings, it reminded me of my beginnings and what I've seen online a bit in the forums, which is that a lot of times we are playing bots in the beginning if we started in more recent times. And there's something there about the fact that it's convenient and also probably a little bit of that social aspect of we don't want to be perceived as losing around other people. We don't know the game yet. We don't understand it yet. And so, we'll just play a bot. I do understand now as, a little bit further along in playing how we continue to recommend to newcomers, hey, just play against a person, don't play against a bot. But I do think it can miss the point, which is that when you're brand new, you're just trying to get a lay of the land. And so playing a bot, you think it will help you. But on the other side of that, bots don't play like humans do. And you're eventually going to want to play humans. That's what's really the most enjoyable. And so, yes, there is this catch-22. I heard over and over as another takeaway that Go becomes a sort of mirror to yourself and to your good traits, your bad traits, and it really lays it to bear right in front of you. And that can be pretty intense. I think not every person likes that. Devin Fraze articulated very well that in order to make this game more popular, we need to show people that it deserves some space or deserves the opportunity to be a priority in a normal person's life, not just for somebody that has a lot of time on their hands. Some of that goes back to what we all want to be involved in. If we do have busy lives, if we have family or we have jobs or whatever it is, sometimes you feel that pull to want to get into something else, a hobby or whatever it might be. And you're trying to find that balance between doing something that's interesting, that won't get boring, but it also doesn't take so much time. Go is interesting because it's endlessly interesting if you like puzzles, but it does take a lot of time to improve at it. I feel like I've been able to be fairly efficient with it and get the enjoyment out of it of learning, but I have no illusions that I've been improving at a very slow pace because of that. And so I think that's something that we need to continue to drill into. I regularly was asking my interviewees how we think about the current world with social media and all of the clickbait and all of the sort of quick reflex things in society and whether that would make it more difficult for others to learn Go. I certainly got some interviewees to tell me, yeah, Travis, people in America maybe are a little lazier. They like stuff fast and easy. But I also heard the other side. And so it does give me some hope. To then make the game more interesting in the West, I really liked how Frank Lance, the game designer, was thinking about it. He was talking about how you might want to sort of spiff it up, make it a little bit more Western in terms of shortening the time controls, putting some more marketing on it, making it a little more glitzy. I think traditionalists would probably frown on that. And again, I think it just goes back to what each of us want for the game. Do we want it to be something that really preserves its traditional roots, but that might limit its popularity because there used to be longer time controls, there used to be all these things? Or do we get more flexible on the game and how it's perceived and how it's shown? That's very much a community-based conversation. All of that being said, from my perspective, I was incredibly grateful for the generosity of all the different people that let me speak to them and learn about their world and learn about their efforts in this because they've been mostly at it for quite some time. And I certainly hope that there will be more opportunities. So that is what I had to say. I hope this was enjoyable. And please feel free to reach out with any questions or comments as always. Thanks so much.